So in my most recent Blender animation, there are a lot of times when I needed characters to pick things up or drop things, or for the objects in their hands to be able to switch hands. And so today I wanted to share a quick little tutorial on how I accomplished that. So if I just scrub through frame by frame in the animation here, as this guy gets grabbed and whipped around, he loses grip on his sword, and that just goes flying and sticks in the rock over here. Now, of course, you can't really see that in the animation, but it's here just in case the cameras did happen to catch that detail. Another point in the animation when I use this technique, the sword is in his right hand, and then this frame, the sword is in his left hand. And he just passes it off as he does this crazy like matrix kick freeze frame. So the technique is to have two swords. One is parented, and that's visible, and then the next frame, it's not visible, and then the visibility of an unparented sword toggles and that appears and flies away. So I'm just going to go through the example with the sword here and show you how he can let go of it and send it flying. So this is the last frame. We want him to be holding onto it. Maybe I'll just put a marker with M on the timeline to indicate that. And then the next frame, we want him to have let go of it. So on the last frame he's holding on, I'm going to go to the object properties and down to visibility, and I'm going to keyframe show in viewports and renders. These are two different toggles, so I'm going to hover over those with my mouse and hit I. And then the next frame, I will uncheck these. I have automatic keyframes enabled, so those automatically keyframe, but you can hit I over those just to make sure there's another keyframe there. And now if we select this and look at it, it disappears on that other frame, which is pretty cool. But it also makes things a little bit complicated to work with because you're working on an object that disappears halfway through the animation. So on the frame where it is visible, I'm going to Shift D and duplicate that, and then I'm going to go Alt P, clear, and keep transformation. And now we have two swords that are disappearing, which also isn't super handy. But if we go back a frame, you can see this is unparented, so that's good to know. We want these to switch. On this frame, we want the unparented sword to be invisible, and then the next frame, we want it to be visible. So for this unparented sword, to manage the keyframes, I'm just going to make sure all of them are deleted to start with. And then on this frame, we want it invisible. This frame, we want it visible. So let's make sure we have a keyframe of it being visible here. So I'm going to once again hover over viewports and renders and keyframe that. And then the previous frame before that, let's uncheck these and just make sure those are keyframed. Okay, so now if we scrub through the animation, he lets go of the sword and it's just here in space, not really doing anything. So let's go to the first frame here where it appears, and let's go to top view. Once again, I have automatic keyframes enabled, and I'm just going to kind of guess where it would be the frame after he lets go of it. I like animating from top view, so I can kind of see the whole picture here. And then maybe a few frames later, it will have flown all the way over here, maybe stick in the rock over here. Cool. So he lets go and it spins around. Actually, just locates around. Let's make sure it's kind of spun up a little bit here. That doesn't make a lot of sense physically, but I think it would work in a pinch. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so that is how he lets go of an object. Cool stuff.